Hezbollah began attacks against Israel, which forced more than 60,000 Israelis on our northern border to leave their homes. Then ask yourself, how long would the American government tolerate that? A day? A week? A month? I doubt they tolerate it even for a single day. Yet Israel has been tolerating this intolerable situation for nearly a year. Well, I've come here today to say enough is enough.
That's how Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended his escalation of attacks in Lebanon at the United Nations General Assembly on Friday. Israel's military has also been preparing for a possible ground attack in Lebanon, focusing on Hezbollah targets. Meantime, President Biden has joined France and 10 other countries calling for an immediate 21-day ceasefire, which Netanyahu has dismissed. Let's bring in Mark Dubowitz. He's the chief executive of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Mark, welcome back. Good to see you. So this offensive against Hezbollah in the north in Lebanon has been rumored for some time. But why is Israel moving now?
Well, Paul, as you know, for the past year, Hezbollah, starting October 8th, started firing rockets, missiles, and drones at Israel, 9,000 projectiles. 60,000 Israelis have had to leave their homes in the north, and the Israelis have said enough is enough. And they've been preparing for war against Iran-backed Hezbollah for a number of years, and now they are striking at Hezbollah's senior leadership, taking out senior commanders, taking out their drones, their rockets, their missiles, and forcing Hezbollah from their border, because Hezbollah was planning another October 7th attack from the north to massacre Israelis there as well.
Does this mean that the Israelis feel confident that that Hamas in Gaza is substantially under control?
Yeah, I think the Israelis feel quite confident that they've severely degraded the military and governing capability of Hamas. Obviously, there's still much more to do, and mopping up operations, and this will be a problem that will persist for months and years. But in terms of destroying their actual capability, their capability to do what they have said, which is another October 7th over and over again, I think the IDF feels like they've accomplished that objective.
In terms of the Hezbollah attack, a lot of people think that Israel really does need to do a ground offensive, at least into southern Lebanon, to be able to achieve its war aim, which is to be able to have its 60,000 citizens who've been displaced from the north of Israel return. Do you agree with that? A ground offensive is probably essential?
Paul, I'm not sure. I think if there's going to be a ground offensive, the Israelis have learned the lesson of 2006. I mean, Hezbollah has been preparing for an Israeli ground offensive for the past 18 years. So they would be fighting on advantageous terms, and Hezbollah would really use that to inflict severe casualties on the IDF. But I think we need to, one thing we've learned from the IDF over the past weeks, Paul, is to expect the unexpected. And if they're not surprising you, then they probably are losing. So I think a ground offensive would be very different from what they did in 2006. For now, they're just taking out Hezbollah leadership, taking out their capabilities. I saw that there was a direct strike on Hezbollah's central headquarters. I believe the Israelis are targeting Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah. They've taken out, 3/4 of Hezbollah's military leadership, and they've done severe damage. I think that's what they want to continue doing, at least for now.
Mark, my sources are saying that Israelis and Prime Minister Netanyahu aren't, in theory, objecting to a ceasefire offer, but they feel they need to be able to have more time to degrade the leadership of that Iranian proxy. Is that what you're hearing too?
Yeah, Paul, I'm hearing the same thing. I think the Israelis are not, in theory, opposed to a ceasefire, but they're going to take advantage of the opportunity as long as Hezbollah and Iran don't agree to that ceasefire. The Israelis are on offense right now, and they should continue to stay on offense and will stay on offense in order to continue to degrade those capabilities and make it less necessary for a ground offensive.
One of the things I found puzzling in the U.S. proposal is that it mentioned Lebanon, that is the Lebanese government in Beirut. It didn't mention Hezbollah or Iran. Can the Lebanese government actually control what that militia does or not?
No, Paul, there's no Lebanese government.
Yeah.
There's no Lebanese leader. There's literally no functioning Lebanese state. I mean, today, Lebanon is Iran. Iran is Lebanon. And Hezbollah controls everything. And Hezbollah takes orders from Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei back in Tehran. So the notion that the United States is going to get an agreement between Lebanon and Israel is a fiction. And that's why it's so important that the Israelis continue to inflict severe damage against the terrorist organization, the terror army that actually controls Lebanon, and that's Hezbollah.
Now, the critics of Israel's campaign say, actually, this is very dangerous for Israel. Tom Friedman of the New York Times, for example, says, because this is, they don't have an answer for what happens next. It's going to risk American support, European support, and going to remove any chance that there's a deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia, which has been possible. What's your response to that criticism?
Yeah, I mean, Tom lives in Potomac, Maryland, and not in Tel Aviv, Israel. So I think it's, we can talk about these various plans and theories. I think at the end of the day, the Israelis live in a tough neighborhood. They live in the Middle East, not in the Midwest. They need to deal with this neighborhood the way it is and the reality the way it is. And they are surrounded on 7 fronts by Iran and its terror-backed proxy armies. And they need to inflict severe damage, not only to degrade the risk of another October 7th and to protect their citizens, but to send a message to the Middle East that the Israelis are back after that intelligence failure of October 7th, and the Israelis are capable of inflicting severe damage against their enemies. And I think that actually earns them a tremendous amount of respect in places like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain, and across the Middle East. Respect from potential allies and certainly fear from current enemies.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your coming in. When we come back, President Biden uses this week's United Nations General Assembly to tout his diplomacy around the world.